You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. So in Minneapolis, a lot of things happening in court today. Main thing, Derek Chauvin, the ex-cop who killed George Floyd, chose not to take the stand to testify in his case. He played the Fifth Amendment. Here's the video.
Mr. Chauvin, you and I have had several discussions throughout the course of my representation of you relevant to your right to testify or to choose to remain silent, correct?
That's correct.
And during the course of our representation, it's fair to say that you and I have had this conversation multiple times, correct?
Correct.
You understand that you have a Fifth Amendment privilege to remain silent. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand that if you choose to exercise that right to remain silent, neither the state nor the court can comment on your silence as a sign or an indication of your guilt. Meaning they can't say he didn't get up and defend himself, so equate your silence with guilt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. Now, you also understand that you can waive that right and testify. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
You understand that if you chose not to testify, or if you did in fact testify, you would be subject to cross-examination by the state of Minnesota.
Yes.
You understand that if you were cross-examined by the state, we could not attempt to limit the scope of your testimony. The state would be given broad latitude to ask you questions. Do you understand that?
Yes.
We've had this conversation repeatedly, correct?
Correct.
I have repeatedly advised you that this is your decision and your decision alone, right?
Correct.
I have advised you, and we have gone back and forth on the matter, would be kind of an understatement, right?
Yes, it is.
But after a lengthy meeting last night, we had some further discussion, agreed?
Correct.
And have you made a decision today whether you intend to testify or whether you intend to invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege?
I will invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege today.
Okay. Mr. Chauvin, I'm going to address you directly
because the decision whether or not to testify, let me take this off, is entirely yours. In other words, it's a personal right. Mr. Nelson makes a lot of the decisions in trial, but one he cannot make for you is whether or not you testify. And he can give you advice, and you can take that advice or reject that advice. But the decision ultimately has to be yours and not his. Is this your decision not to testify?
It is, Your Honor.
All right. Do you have any questions about your right to remain silent or to testify on your own behalf?
Not at this time, I don't.
All right. Has anyone promised anything or threatened you in any way to keep you from testifying?
No promises or threats, Your Honor.
And so in other words, as to the statement that his carboxyhemoglobin could have increased by 10 to 18%, in your view, that's not possible.
It's simply wrong.
And it was at most 2%.
At most 2%.
Normal.
Which is normal.
All right, folks. So again, Derek Chauvin choosing not to take the stand. Let's go to my panel. Greg Carr, who is the chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Brittany Lewis, she's a political analyst. Amisha Cross, political analyst, Democratic strategist. First of all, I'll start with you, Brittany. Jury is going to soon get this. Is it any shock Derek Chauvin chose not to take the stand?
I mean, I'm not surprised that he didn't take the stand. I think that it's very clear that would have been the final nail in his coffin. I think that the prosecution has done a good job laying him all the way out, quite frankly. Jerry Blackwell's been great dismantling everything that's been put forth. And I think that would also, had he taken a stand, I think there would also have been an opportunity for them to talk about his previous record. And we know that this isn't his first instance of police brutality. So either way, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. I'm not surprised whatsoever.
Amisha.
I agree with Brittany. Brittany there, because at the end of the day, I never had any expectation that Derek Chauvin would take the stand. One, he would be facing what he's faced thus far in terms of a prosecution that not only did their homework, but presented a very strong case against him. But also, I think that his lawyer knew what the general public does not necessarily. In preparation for this, they've probably gone back and forth just in case he was to decide to take it. And at the end of the day, this is someone who does not come across remorseful in any way. I think that his posturing would have caused a greater trouble for him, even if he had decided to take the stand. He's not somebody who comes off remorseful. He's not someone who has any level of regret. He's also someone who, because he has so many instances of police brutality that are documented cases in terms of the folks who filed claims against him, at this point, there was no way to get away from that. And if he got on the stand and was argumentative, if he got on the stand and tried to make light of those situations, I think that it would have hurt him in the end. So to his part, I think it was actually smart for him to sit this one out, because he's the one who has his back up against the wall right now. And I don't think that him testifying would have provided any bit of help for his situation.
Dr. Greg Carr, your assessment of where this trial stands.
I agree. I think that I would like to know, and I expect that we will all find out whenever he does his tell-all book, since he's never told his story publicly, and I'm sure that that's the first time most of us have ever heard his little voice. I would like to know what the conversation was between him and his lawyer, between him and Nelson. Which one of them said you should testify, and which one said no. Remember, the defense theory is very basic. It's 4 words. Well, no, it's not even 4 words. What we've seen over the last couple of days is 4 words, the battle of the experts. This is when the eyes glaze over. Anyone watching this thinking we're tracing it through logic or strength of arguments, please understand the defense strategy is very basic. George Floyd was not human. This human being faced a wall of savages in a jungle and had no course to resort to except his training, which was to preserve his human life and protect humanity from the threat. So it doesn't matter whether or not, as we saw Dr. Tobin eviscerate that fool David Fowler, who is currently one of the people being sued by the family of Anton Black here in Maryland, because he is known as a bag man for the police in terms of being a medical examiner. It doesn't matter whether that theory of CO2 or heart defect or heart disease or drugs, it doesn't matter whether that's factually accurate or not. The defense has a basic objective. We must get one of these jurors who will be sequestered beginning Monday, one of these jurors who are now going home to see escalating protests in Brooklyn Park, one of these jurors to look at Derek Chauvin and say, I understand. White power. You had to do what you did. And I don't give a damn what these other 11 say. You, sir, are not guilty. And that's the 2 words it's going to come down to: reasonable doubt. Him keeping his mouth shut, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best possible strategy, because there's nothing he can say or needs to say to that one juror who's sitting over there like, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
Well, that was certainly the case. And boy, Brittany, how nuts was it? This whole carbon monoxide, that's what killed George Floyd.
I have to laugh because it was just so, Dr. Fowler was reaching for straws and coming up with speculative and wild theories. This man really had the audacity to every other possible scenario but Chauvin's knee on Floyd's neck as the reason that killed him. And carbon monoxide, he even admitted that they didn't test, well, he said it on the stand, that, they didn't test for carbon monoxide. So how is it possible that you can even make that claim? And even if we are to entertain that foolishness, if it was death by carbon monoxide poisoning from the exhaust pipe, who put George Floyd in the position to be forced to inhale the deadly gas in the first place? It's foolishness, Roland.
I just couldn't help but laugh at that one, Amisha. And then who was the one who put George Floyd on the ground to be right next to the pipe? Derek Chauvin.
You're absolutely right. Like, it came out of nowhere. It was something that wasn't presented beforehand at all because it was completely irrelevant. It was also an instance where there is no proof to show that the motor was still running or that the car was on at all. So nobody actually knows. But in addition to that, from the autopsy and all the medical reports, there is no evidence that showcases that this was a cause of death. This was a last minute throw in, the same as it was when there was an argument that apparently the same doctor found that George Floyd was not actually in pain. So let's just believe that he was laying on the pavement chilling, according to that doctor or that expert, that there was nothing, there was nothing out of the ordinary here, and that this was normal protocol. There was so much going wrong with that testimony. And I think that just, the fact that he was able to throw in some things that he couldn't draw a linear direction towards. And we have to be clear about this. He never actually said that carbon monoxide was the cause. What he did was go down this listing of how it could be a contributing factor, not really knowing whether it was or not, but also planting that seed to Dr. Carr's point, planting that seed in the heads of a juror, a potential juror, somebody who already is probably thinking, well, maybe this was not Derek Chauvin's fault, trying to find a way to weasel in their head to get this man off. And I think that, to that extent, that specific witness provided that leveraging point for him.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.